Welcome to TRT World. I am Semir Sejfovic, and in this week's Across the Balkans, we'll be bringing you the latest stories from the region and how countries, governments, and populations are affected. Public trust in Bosnia and Herzegovina's institutions continues to erode. Non-governmental research, coupled with recent tragedies and investigations, has intensified concern over accountability and the system's ability to respond. Armin Totic reports.
On the streets of Sarajevo, the sentiment among the populace is mostly the same. People are not asking for a perfect system, only that institutions do their job. Some referenced recent snowfall that disrupted daily life in the city, saying the response was inadequate. However, others believe society itself must also take responsibility and change its mindset.
Ovaj snijeg je pokazao da nisu baš sposobni i ne znam, mislim da većina ljudi mojih godina dijeli slično mišljenje.
Određeni ljudi rade svoj posao dobro. Međutim, imate puno i onih koji ili ne znaju ili nisu osposobljeni za ono što bi trebalo da znaju i trebalo da rade.
Mislim da je pravo pitanje vjerujemo li u ljude, mogu li oni pomoći. Čišćenje snijega nije samo zadatak države. Svako treba ispred svoje kuće da početi. U to ne vjerujem da imamo takve građane.
Research by civil society organizations shows that citizens' trust in institutions is undermined not only by individual cases, but also by how institutions operate and communicate. Transparency International Bosnia and Herzegovina warns that one of the key problems remains the lack of transparency, particularly within the judiciary.
Ono što smo vidjeli jeste da generalno pravosudne institucije u Bosni i Hercegovini, pogotovo kada se radi o djelima korupcije, naročito ne visoke korupcije, jako sporo djeluju, dosta selektivno pristupaju u slučajevima, tako da imamo dva entiteta za neka krivična djela se relativno brzo došlo do odluka, kao što su recimo korupcija u vrijeme korone, dok u Republici Srpskoj još uvijek nemamo sudski epilog za vrlo slične slučajeve onima koji su bili u federaciji.
Transparency International notes that when formal mechanisms fail or are absent, public pressure often influences decisions that align with the public interest.
Mislim da javni pritisak možda i posljednje što nam je ostalo, što može izvršiti pritisak na institucije kako bi donosile odluke u javnom interesu, jer javni interes ono što često izostaje u odnosu na privatne i stranačke interese. Možda to najbolje vidimo u oblasti zaštite okoline, životne sredine, obzirom da su mnogi protesti i pritisci građana, stanovnika mjesta u kojima su se trebalo da li rudariti, da li graditi mini hidrocentrale i slično, pokazali da svojim djelovanjem zaista mogu zaustaviti neke aktivnosti koje često nisu u skladu zapravo sa zakonom.
Citizens' mistrust is further deepened by tragedies that raise long-standing questions of accountability and oversight. In Tuzla, 17 residents of a retirement home died in a fire in November last year. Investigations are ongoing, but there have been no indictments or clear answers so far. Similar questions remain more than a year after floods and landslides in Donja Ablanica killed 19 people. Opposition MP Safet Kesho says one of the key issues lies in the way oversight and accountability mechanisms are set up.
Znate, kad vi imate podobne uprave u javnim preduzećima, kad vi imate podobne nadzore i tako dalje, i kad u cijeloj toj priči konzumirate samo prava, ali ne i obaveze i odgovornost, onda dolazi do tog raskoraka u kojem se događaju i tragedije bez ikakvih posljedica.
Sasha Magazinović, another MP whose party is part of the ruling coalition, says the key problem is the failure to hold people accountable.
Mislim da povjerenje je jače na lokalnom nivou gdje ljudi mogu vidjeti opipljive stvari, da se nešto konkretno uradilo, a da je mnogo manje kad se ide prema višim nivoima vlasti. S tim da ja se nadam iskreno da će doći vrijeme kad ćemo političare i ljude u politici koji primaju visoke plate za svoj rad cijeniti po onome što su uradili, a ne po onome što govore. Jer povjerenje, odnosno nepovjerenje u institucije je dosta bazirano i na osnovu onoga šta političari govore, a ne na osnovu njihovih dijela.
One legal analyst warned that citizens' mistrust affects not only how institutions are perceived, but also whether problems and violence are reported at all.
Građani moraju vjerovati svojim institucijama i mi sve svoje probleme koje možemo riješiti kroz institucije. Institucije su dio društva kao i građani što su dio društva i vrlo je važno da adekvatno komuniciramo. Upravo ta posljedica nepovjerenja građana prema institucijama vlasti je jedna od velikih izazova da mi kao građani prijavimo neku dešavanje. Da, ukoliko smo pričali o nekim o slučajima u Jablanci, određenim femicidima, da kao građani vjerujemo da kada čujemo, ako govorimo o nasilju u porodici, čujemo unutar naše komšiluka da zaista se i dešava neko nasilje u porodici, da ga mi prijavimo. Jer mi očekujemo da vrlo često represivni organi nam dadnu sav odgovor na naše probleme.
Between those warnings and citizens' experiences, the issue of trust also remains open in the political arena.
While institutions debate procedures and jurisdictions, citizens expect clear answers and visible results. So far, responses indicate that systematic problems are being acknowledged, but their resolution remains slow and often without concrete outcomes. In such an environment, trust in institutions depends not only on how the system responds when cases arise, but also in its ability to prevent them. Armin Totić, Across the Balkans, Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina.
We speak to Kenan Efendic, a Bosnian writer, journalist, and communications expert, discussing the current state of Bosnia and Herzegovina, examining its political challenges, public trust, and prospect for the future. Mr. Efendic, thank you very much for talking to TRT World and the show Across the Balkans. Bosnia is often represented in media, whether that be internationally or locally, in many investigations, many corruption scandals. Is that really the picture that is truly portraying Bosnia's reality when it comes to the rights of citizens, the right of free trade, and the opportunities Bosnia actually has to offer?
I believe that corruption in Bosnia is over-reported and judiciary over-processed. There is one root cause to that issue, which stems some 3 decades ago. Bosnia is quite a typical country, reformed in 1995 by an international peace accords in Dayton, where we have 3 main local stakeholders representing 3 ethnic groups: Bosniaks, who are dominantly Muslims, Croats and Serbs, and we have an international community which is not only politically but legally, constitutionally formal and has a lot of authority to intervene. In the first 10 years, international community intervened against those politicians that haven't been cooperative by arresting them, by making sanctions. After the first decade, anti-corruption became a leverage of international community in fighting uncooperative local authorities and also in fighting those authorities that are not along the lines of the most powerful international community actors, which is the United States in Bosnia and Herzegovina. If Sweden or some other Scandinavian country has so many investigative reporters, so many international grants for anti-corruption, so many outside pressure to deal with corruption, I believe that perception of corruption would go highly up in Scandinavia. I want to remind that Bosniaks here have probably 2 roots of their highly sensitivity to corruption. It's their tradition of communist morale that's for justice, but they also have quite longer, centuries long tradition of Islamic sensitivity to injustice. So when you come to such a society that is still sensitive to corruption, then you have such a perception. Sometimes foreigners are coming here and telling us that here is corruption, something which is politics in their yard. I don't want to remind that lobbying is basically a legalized, structuralized corruption. Currently we had really serious case of corruption in the top of the European Union. One of the ex-top officials, Federica Mogherini, was involved in a really basically provincial kind of, parochial kind of corruption. So I believe, yes, corruption is present in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but not more and not deeper than in any country of such size and level of development.
But if you look at some research by institutes, by universities across Bosnia and Herzegovina, or the public opinion in terms of social media, there is a perception data showing that trust in institutions by citizens is at some 10 to 15%, which, what does that tell the government, and why is it so hard to hold government accountable in the perception of citizens?
The administration in Bosnia, the public services in Bosnia are underdeveloped because of state structure, because of weak democratic tradition. We have been a democracy for only about 30 to 35 years. We don't have a tradition of real democratic political life where you have a strong bureaucracy and strong public services, then you have judiciary, then you have a parliament and so on. I believe that this low percentage is influenced by media and by typical, I would like to say, southern characteristics of whining and complaining on government. There is also one structural anomaly that was here for 15 years. Public broadcasting service in the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina has been run by opposition. The job of opposition is to tell you that government is not working properly. So after 15 years of opposition running public broadcasters and telling people that their government is not good enough, then you have one whole generation believing that government, or as such per se, is not something good. Sometimes we have incompetence of officials and we label that as corruption. Corruption as such can mean everything and nothing.
When we have incompetence at a level that impacts the future of EU integration, of the NATO process, how do you hold these people accountable if the public is continuously saying that they are demanding accountability?
Yeah, maybe there is some kind of insincerity there, because our people in all these researches and social media are telling us one thing, then they go to polls on elections and they make another choices. I believe there is some kind of pretending publicly that we are all rooting for some really important and tough, difficult causes to implement them, but then when you go to elections, it's not mirrored in elections. So the only way to hold officials accountable in a democratic society with free elections, and we do have really free elections, fair elections, I believe it's on elections. And I believe that smaller parties and other stakeholders should influence political parties, both from outside and both from within, to hold them more accountable, to help make them more prepared to deliver better results.
Judiciary reforms are going to be required from Bosnia and Herzegovina on the way to the EU. A lot of this unsatisfaction coming from citizens is based on the judiciary system. How do you see this judiciary reforms affect the future of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and what needs to be done?
Post-war Bosnian judiciary was totally formed and reformed by foreigners. It was foreign-run project. We even had foreign prosecutors on the state level dealing with war crimes and high corruption. And the influence of foreigners, of ambassadors of the most important countries on judiciary is unacceptable. So we have almost 30 years of politically controlled and influenced judiciary, and it's really tough to think of directions and frameworks how to reform that. These laws that EU is demanding are not going to change that. I'm really worried about the future of our judiciary, because let's say that police structures are still somehow keeping a level of professionality, but judiciary, I'm really not optimistic. I think we also need high quality persons in judiciary. We have been meeting like top prosecutors, top judges, persons that can be bribed by an iPhone 15 Pro Max or something like that. I believe that judiciary itself should answer these questions. People who work there, who want to be honorable men and women, need to respond to this. Do they want to be a political tool, a very sleazy, dirty political tool, or they want to be respectable members of their community as judges, prosecutors, and clerks?
How do you see the future of the High Representative, the Office of the High Representative, which is here under a UN mandate according to the Dayton Peace Accords?
When we say international community in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have to be aware that it's 95% United States of America, which is sometimes good and which is sometimes bad, like everything in life and in society. The authority, the real scope of authorities and powers of the High Representative depends on the foreign policy of the United States. Currently, that policy goes along the lines, there is no war, there is no unrest, and really is not. This is quite peaceful society currently compared to some other societies both in Europe and outside Europe. And he's not gonna get involved. He got totally involved in constitutional and electoral architecture of the country 3 years ago. And it was the first time after Dayton Peace Agreement that Bosniaks, as the most loyal citizens of this country, went against international intervention, because this intervention opened or made a wider road for further ethnical divisions of the country within the administration and electoral law. So my message, and I was writing about that extensively, is that High Representative is not going to intervene in anything specific. Still, it is important to have such a figure that can intervene in sometimes peculiar situations, like not adopting a budget for elections. And citizens, they still probably have those impressions of the first decade after the Dayton, when we had those High Representatives that were both eager and both had mandates to intervene in everything. I believe it's really important to have some kind of authority, and these are High Representative and Constitutional Court of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is not ethnically structured, which is professionally structured. These two instances are very important in keeping this country stable against outside and inside powers of destruction.
Protests by farmers across Greece have disrupted highways, airports and border crossings since November. While some blockades have eased ahead of talks with government, uncertainty remains. Teda Imamovic has more.
Farmers across Greece have been protesting for months. They demand the payment of delayed support funds linked to alleged corruption in state subsidies and measures to reduce high production costs. The delays stemmed from investigations into a corruption scandal in which some farmers, aided by state employees, allegedly fake land ownership to qualify for payouts. Recently, the farmers started easing their road blockades.
Αποφασίστηκε πλειοψηφικά η διαδικασία να ανοίξει ο δρόμος, να παραμείνουμε στον μπλόκο, απλά να δώσουμε στην κυκλοφορία το δρόμο κανονικά από τις 4 και μετά. Με το σκεπτικό ότι αυτή τη στιγμή θα πάμε σε μια διαδικασία το Σάββατο να προλάβουμε να κάνουμε μια συνέλευση πανελλαδική στην Νίκαια που έχει προγραμματιστεί για 1 η ώρα, να συζητήσουμε τα αιτήματα που θα παραθέσουμε στον Πρωθυπουργό, για να δούμε τι μπορούμε να σώσουμε από τη στιγμή που η Mercosur υπογράφει.
The EU approved the Mercosur agreement on the 9th of January after 25 years of negotiations. It's a deal hailed by business groups as creating one of the world's largest free trade areas, but has been fiercely opposed by many European farmers. They argue that Greece's economy depends on agriculture and tourism and view this deal as a potential death sentence for their livelihoods.
Υπάρχει ένα γενικότερο πρόβλημα σε όλη την Ευρώπη με το πρόγραμμα της Mercosur, με το τι θα γίνει με την Ουκρανία, γιατί προβλέπονται διάφορα προϊόντα τριτοκοσμικά να μπαίνουν μέσα στην Ευρώπη και να κατεδαφίζουν τις τιμές των ευρωπαϊκών προϊόντων. Πράγμα που σημαίνει ότι η βιωσιμότητά μας κρίνεται στην τρίχα.
The farmers say that opening European markets further to large-scale South American producers risks placing small Greek farms at a disadvantage. Lower production costs abroad raise fears that local producers will be squeezed on price, even when quality remains unmatched.
ψηφιστεί η Mercosur, θα τελειώσουμε. Η Mercosur για εμάς είναι η κόκκινη γραμμή. Όσα και να μας δώσει από τα υπόλοιπα αιτήματα, αν δεχτεί τη Mercosur, είναι σαν να μην υπάρχει τίποτα.
Greece has indicated it will support the trade deal if it comes with clear safeguard clauses and constant monitoring of its impact on EU production. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis finally held talks with some farmers, while others declined.
Ξέρετε ότι από την πρώτη στιγμή η κυβέρνηση έδειξε μεγάλη ανοχή στις κοινοτοποιήσεις των ρωτών, αναγνωρίζοντας τα μεγάλα υπαρκτά προβλήματα. Γι' αυτό άλλωστε ανταποκρίθηκε σε πολλά αιτήματά τους, ζητώντας όμως παράλληλα πάντα έναν ειλικρινή διάλογο, όπως τον διάλογο που κάναμε σήμερα.
While the meeting was underway in Athens with 21-member delegation of farmers, those who refused to attend continued the blockade. They claim the delegation did not cover all farming sectors.
Δεν μπορεί μέσα σε μία ώρα να λύσουμε τα προβλήματα του αγροτικού τομέα. Αυτό ήταν εξευτελισμός απέναντι στους αγρότες. Δεν βάζεις deadline σε ώρα. Δεν μπορεί από τις 1 μέχρι τις 3 να συζητήσουμε προβλήματα 40 χρόνων. Δεν γίνεται, δεν είναι εφικτό. Πάει να πει ότι δεν ήθελα να τα συζητήσουμε. Δεν ήθελα να ακούσουν τις αλήθειες.
As for what comes next, officials have warned that if transport disruptions continue and if protests escalate, police will have little choice but to intervene as they see fit. Tejda Imamovic, Across the Balkans.
A new museum in Zagreb is putting laughter at the center of the experience. Adam Amunu has the story.
It's not every day you get to sumo wrestle for fun. But that's what's on offer at the Haha House Museum in Zagreb, whose aim is to bring joy to locals of all ages and tickle them with 8 colourful and wacky rooms. One has a Robert Chicken Choir cheerfully cackling out hits like ABBA's Dancing Queen, and there is a karaoke room with distorted voices. Once visitors step inside, their journey at Haha House begins with a puff of white smoke. And that's before they climb into a giant washing machine that whisks them away, Alice in Wonderland style, down a slide into a pool of little white balls. Its creator Andrea Golubic had the idea for the museum during the coronavirus pandemic.
Svi dosta se otuđili jedni od drugih, malo onako potonuli, općenito, energetski otuđili se i nekako postali tužni. Javila mi se potreba u sebi da širim radost i da bi ljudi trebali se malo dići i postati sretni i radosni.
The museum is designed for people of all ages, but for singer Zorica Bucic, who's from the coastal town of Split, it's especially perfect for grown-ups to reconnect with their inner child.
U današnje vrijeme kad nas obasipaju tako lošim vijestima i nije neko vrijeme i događa se svašta, tako kada ovdje uđeš, nekako kada uđeš u djetinjstvo, kao da si rasterećen od svih nekih problema, izađeš sretan, ne trebate plaćati psihologa ako ste češće ovdje.
Some psychologists agree.
Obrambeni mehanizam čovjeka drži negdje nekako čvrstim i jakim, spremnim da se rješavaju nekakvi problemi koji hoćete, nećete, moraju doći.
They can also explore different styles like wordplay, slapstick and dark humor. Alexander has come along to celebrate his 5th birthday. Even he's coming round to understanding that life can just be for laughs.
Još ni gotov. Moj rođendan, ali sam u muzeju je bilo dobro. Au!
Thank you for watching TRT World and letting us once again take you across the Balkans. That is all from the team for this week. We hope to see you next time.